Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Tonight's story is one that many believed they would never hear spoken aloud. Moscow in flames, shockwaves rippling through the very heart of Russia, as President Vladimir Putin is reportedly pushed closer than ever to considering a withdrawal, while a surprise strike hits Russia's capital itself. This is not just another escalation on the battlefield. This is psychological warfare, strategic signaling, and a moment that could redefine the future of the entire conflict. For years, Moscow was portrayed as untouchable. While cities in Ukraine burned, while front lines shifted back and forth, the Russian capital stood as a symbol of control, power, and distance from the consequences of war. That illusion has now been shattered. What happened was not only unexpected, it was deeply unsettling for the Kremlin, for Russian elites, and for ordinary citizens who were told repeatedly that the war would never come home. Let's break down exactly what this moment means, why it matters far beyond a single strike, and how it could force Vladimir Putin into the most dangerous decision of his political life. In the early hours before dawn, residents of Moscow were jolted awake by sounds they had never expected to hear. Explosions, air defense systems firing, sirens echoing through the streets. Social media, despite censorship, lit up with videos showing flashes in the sky, smoke rising near key districts, and emergency services scrambling across the city. This was not a random incident. This was not an accident. This was a deliberate, calculated strike, designed to send one clear message: nowhere is safe. For the Kremlin, the immediate challenge was not just intercepting incoming threats. It was controlling the narrative. State media rushed to downplay the incident, calling it a minor drone attack or provocation with no serious damage. But the images told a different story. Fires burning in areas close to strategic sites, air defenses working overtime in the capital, flights delayed, roads closed, panic spreading. The psychological impact was enormous. For years, Russian leadership assured its people that the special military operation was far away, controlled, and necessary for national security. Now, suddenly, Moscow itself was part of the battlefield. And this is where the story becomes far more serious. According to multiple reports from political insiders, military analysts, and foreign intelligence assessments, this strike comes at a moment when Putin is under unprecedented internal pressure. The Russian military is exhausted. Equipment losses are staggering. Sanctions are biting deeper than officially admitted. And public patience, while muted by repression, is thinning. Behind closed doors, the word withdrawal is no longer unthinkable. This does not mean surrender. It does not mean peace tomorrow. But it does mean that Moscow's leadership is being forced to confront a reality they tried desperately to avoid. Continuing the war at the current intensity may threaten the survival of the regime itself. The strike on Moscow changes everything because it attacks not just military assets, but the myth of invulnerability. Authoritarian systems rely heavily on perception, strength, control, inevitability. When citizens believe the state is all-powerful, dissent remains minimal. But when that perception cracks, when explosions light up the night sky above the capital, fear shifts from the population to the leadership. Putin understands this better than anyone. Throughout his rule, he has carefully cultivated an image of the protector, the man who restored order after chaos, who defended Russia from humiliation, who ensured stability. A burning Moscow undermines that image in the most dangerous way possible. This is why the Kremlin's response has been so tense, so contradictory, and so revealing. On one hand, officials vow retaliation, promising that Russia will respond at a time and place of its choosing. On the other hand, quiet diplomatic signals suggest something else entirely: a desire to reduce pressure, to freeze certain fronts, to explore off-ramps that were previously dismissed as weakness. The timing of this strike is no coincidence. It comes as Russian forces struggle to hold ground on multiple fronts. Supply lines are stretched thin, recruitment efforts face growing resistance, regional governors are increasingly vocal about economic strain. Even within elite circles, there is unease, and now Moscow itself has been touched. From a strategic standpoint, the strike demonstrates a leap in capability and confidence by Russia's adversaries. Whether through drones, sabotage, or coordinated intelligence operations, reaching the capital requires precision, planning, and insider knowledge of air defense gaps. This sends another chilling message: Russia's defenses are not as airtight as claimed. For Putin, this creates a terrifying dilemma. Escalate further, risking even more dramatic strikes and deeper isolation, or pull back, risking the perception of weakness that could embolden rivals at home and abroad. Historically, Putin has favored escalation, but history also shows that leaders facing pressure from within often choose survival over pride. The concept of withdrawal being discussed does not necessarily mean a full retreat. It could mean scaling back objectives, freezing certain conflicts, or rebranding the war under a new narrative. But make no mistake, any step away from maximalist goals would be an implicit admission that the original plan failed. And that is dangerous for a man who built his legacy on control and success. Inside Moscow, the mood has shifted. While open protests remain rare due to repression, the psychological shock is real. People are asking questions quietly, cautiously, but they are asking. If Moscow can be hit, what else is possible? If the capital is no longer safe, what was the point of all this sacrifice? These questions are poison to authoritarian rule. Meanwhile, within the Kremlin, power dynamics are becoming increasingly unstable. Hardliners push for brutal retaliation, arguing that only overwhelming force can restore deterrence. Pragmatists warn that further escalation could provoke responses Russia cannot control. Putin stands between these factions, isolated, aging, and under more pressure than at any point in his rule. The surprise strike on Moscow may not have destroyed major infrastructure, but it has achieved something far more important. It has shattered confidence. Internationally, the reaction has been swift and cautious. Western governments avoid overt celebration, but privately, many see this as a turning point. Not because Moscow burned, but because Moscow felt fear. Fear changes behavior. For years, Russia relied on the assumption that its core territory was off limits. That assumption allowed the Kremlin to wage war without fully confronting domestic consequences. That era appears to be ending. And as that reality sets in, the possibility of a strategic shift grows. Could this push Putin toward negotiations? Possibly. Could it force a partial withdrawal to stabilize the regime? That too is possible. Or could it provoke a reckless escalation that spirals out of control? That danger remains very real. What is certain is this: the strike on Moscow has narrowed Putin's options. Every decision now carries immense risk. Doing nothing invites more strikes. Escalating invites devastating consequences. Withdrawing invites internal instability. This is the trap of his own making. The war that was meant to secure Russia's future now threatens its present. The operation that was sold as defensive has brought fire to the capital. The promise of strength has revealed vulnerability. As smoke cleared over Moscow, one truth became impossible to deny. The war has come home, and when war comes home, leaders are forced to choose between ideology and survival. In the coming weeks, we will likely see intensified rhetoric, symbolic retaliations, and efforts to project strength. But behind the scenes, the real story will unfold in whispers, backroom meetings, and secret negotiations. Is Putin preparing to withdraw? Not publicly, not yet. But the fact that the question is now being asked at the highest levels is itself historic. Moscow in Flames is not just a headline, it is a signal, a warning, and perhaps the beginning of the end of an illusion that held for far too long. The world is watching, the Kremlin is listening, and the next move could change everything. Stay with us.